Yeah, I don't need anyone to raise hands or do anything special. People can just unmute and talk when they're ready. And if you want to, instead of talking, you can use chat. And if you don't want to use chat, don't use chat at all. That's fine. You don't have to chat anything in. But this is a scenarios training, so I'd love to have people give scenarios so that we can talk about them. And I know that we have one in the chat already, so that is super cool.
Okay.
And if you, like I said, if you don't want to type it in, you can always just wait and speak it out loud. But it looks like we're close to 3:35, so I'll just get started with this first one, and then we'll go to the next one. And I'll just keep using my, the different perspectives of how I think about this stuff. So this scenario is a student shuts down but begins growling, groaning, and then escalates to screaming very loudly. This continues for 20 to 30 minutes. That is outstanding. Okay. Um, so the first thing that comes through my mind is um, regulation. So if they shut down, the signal for me around shutdown is something is happening that's overwhelming. And so then my first questions are around, do we have self-regulation and co-regulation strategies in place? Um, so I'll go more in depth into this little stuff, but I just want to kind of give an overview first. So I think self-regulation, co-regulation, and then I start to think function of behavior when I see butt begins growling and groaning and then escalates to screaming. Um, that is typically functionally connected to wanting attention or relationship. So my guess is this student won't be very good at self-regulation, that their kind of escape behavior of shutting down is an attempt to communicate that I don't know how to regulate my emotions and I can't do it on my own, which is why then I escalate to growling, groaning, and screaming because it's a request for co-regulation, meaning I want to connect with somebody who I have a strong relationship with in order to learn how to regulate because I can't regulate myself. Otherwise, typically what we see if students are given the option to opt out or do something different than what's being asked, um, they can move to that other option of like a break or drawing or resting or, some kind of small activity, and they won't continue to escalate. They'll actually be able to remove themselves from demands, engage in some other activity and come back on their own. So if we're not seeing if first of all, if that's not in place, then I would say, well, we need to put that in place. And even if they can't do it on their own, then through co-regulation, we could start teaching them how to use those activities when they need to, and we could be there with them, and we can then start shaping that behavior by moving away for small amounts of time. Like, hey, you're doing this great coloring. I'm going to go check on so and so. I'll be right back. And you can start working in brief moments of them doing it on their own, which is slowly teaching them the self-regulation part of that strategy so that eventually you can move yourself out of that job. Because co-regulation is just there's no way around it, but it's also a logistical nightmare in our classrooms because it essentially means one-on-one support. There are versions of co-regulation where it can be a little more flexible and you can include them like next to small groups where they're doing a different activity, but you're there to kind of intermittently check in and check back out from them to keep them maintaining, which is a version of co-regulation that's a little less intensive. But essentially, it takes adult time and energy to support co-regulation. And there are kids that just don't know how to self-regulate yet. The other thing about co-regulation is um, it demands a trusted relationship. So there is relationship building that needs to happen for kids who can't self-regulate. Um, The generic version of understanding this through Dr. Bruce Perry's work is um, self-regulation occurs when um, a child has a trusted relationship to learn co-regulation from. And once they can learn co-regulation from a trusted adult, then self-regulation can start to set in. It's like one of the very first things that kids will learn if they have a trusted adult that can help them regulate so they can learn those skills. And if they don't have that skill, then we become the teachers of that. The teacher, the paraprofessionals, the admins, just the school staff. We have to structure that around the student. So that's how I start to think about this. And then, of course, for me, it's the delivery of this is through the nurtured heart approach. So as we think about putting these things in place, um, we have to design it in a way where the self-regulation strategies aren't a reactive, they aren't accessed through reactivity. So those regulation activities need to be in place 100% of the time so that a kid can choose to engage in them whenever they want and they can engage in them for as long as they want and then they can return back to what's being asked of them whenever they're ready. Otherwise, what happens is we inadvertently teach a kid that if you want access to your basically escape, um, which is then further fueled by connection through co-regulation, you need to have a problem first. So we're actually creating a behavior that has a function of escape and co-regulation if we don't offer it for free 100% of the time. So that's where I'll start with that scenario. That's somewhat complex if you haven't had those layers of training that I've given before, but that has to do with my de-escalation training, which there is an ebook that's available for everybody on this call through Butte County. That's called Stop Accidentally Making Things Worse. And that's the de-escalation continuum. And that has to, in there, it talks about opt-outs and redirections and self-regulation and co-regulation. And then the function of behavior stuff is I do have a new ebook. I don't know if I've actually put it somewhere where it's accessible to everybody in Butte County, but I could cheat that and do it right now. I just dropped in the chat the PDF of that ebook that has to do with function of behavior. And it's not a dense, overwhelming ebook that is with tons of details and all that stuff. It's pretty much, it would be very useful. Like if I was a teacher, it's a good like reminder and it's more of a mindset shift. It's not misbehavior, it's communication. I titled it that way on purpose so that people can understand that what looks like misbehavior is actually communication. And it would be a great like quote book study kind of a thing um, for like paraprofessionals and teachers and special ed classrooms, especially self-contained STCs. Um, the chapters are like 1.5 pages, big print, easy reads, like 40 pages long. I just wanted it to be easy and accessible for people to start the process of thinking that way. Um, so essentially, like I talked about, going through um, like thinking about regulation, self-regulation, co-regulation, then thinking about what the behavior that we're currently seeing is communicating and how to build in some version of what they're asking for into the appropriate choices that will offer them. And then moving into making sure that those interventions are aligned with stand one, stand two, and stand three of nurtured heart approach so that we don't inadvertently fuel problems that we're trying to get rid of. So that's like the shortest synopsis of kind of how I think through every problem, but I gave a little details on that last one. So,
Hey Josh, it's Karen.
hi, Karen.
Hi. I'm right in the middle of like figuring out a program for this student. So I kind of think I have it, but um he's been allowed like most of his academic career, I think, to do whatever he wants to do because people are afraid that he's going to hurt them because he does hurt people.
Hmm.
And so now that I have him, and now that I've been able to get a lot of other things under control, with a lot of moving parts in my program, now I'm putting him on his own, um, schedule and incentives and things like that. But his behaviors are so ingrained, um, that I think it's going to be really hard to get him to really engage or participate in school activities. Um,
Hmm.
I know and I understand you're a huge proponent of being able to opt out and to, I think he's been able to opt out without really, um, parameters or conditions, just basically like, do you
Yeah.
want to do this work or do you want to opt out? And he's always like, I want to opt out, or he knows he's been trained to say, like, no, thank you. So he just says no, thank you to everything. No, thank you to going where we need to go. No, thank you to wearing shoes. No, thank you to sitting here. No, thank you to going to your area. So, like, I think through incentive and just building relationship and, having work that's engaging to him. I've busted out a bunch of like circuit boards and little engineering things. We're talking middle school here. Um,
Okay, perfect.
Things that I think, so I'm just trying out like different reinforcers and trying out different
Yeah.
activities that he might want to work for or might even just enjoy doing to build relationship. Um, but I don't know, just any ideas of we're sort of getting him on a schedule, but he'll lash out, he'll hit, he definitely cusses and yells and throws things, and most everybody is afraid of him.
Yeah.
So I mean, my idea is just really build relationship with him, get him engaged in things that he thinks, are exciting and fun, and then maybe kind of ease into some academics if possible. And I'm an SDC class, ESN, SDC class, and his diagnosis is autism.
Okay.
Um, so I guess really just the fact that he's so resistant, and I think that's just been like how he's always seen school.
Yeah.
And I don't really think there are many demands on him, at home, you know,
Yeah.
behaviorally or that. So just maybe ideas, or if you think I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah, so I do. I mean, obviously the foundation of what you're talking about being relational and connecting in relationship is going to move you through those more difficult spaces. Right away, my first question is, what does he do when he says no, thank you? Then what does he engage in on his own? What are his like choice activities or his opt-outs? What does he like tend to gravitate toward?
We have this like cushy chair, a calming corner chair.
Hmm.
So he likes to be there. And just
And what
pretty
does he
much
do?
he just chills out. Sometimes he'll draw, but most of the times he just chills out. And then, I mean, if he could do whatever he wanted to do, he would do that and then go outside, and he stems by like walking barefoot and kind of making like, it's almost like the noise of like a mourning dove, like I don't know, gurgling, chirping, and he'll walk and do that. Um, and he likes to take his clothes off, or at least we can have him keep his shorts on, and then he'll come back and just want to chill. So if he could do that all day, he's pretty much not gonna lash out. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
So this is kind of like when I have kids like this, what I try to do is create structure around what's already happening and then hijack collaboration and cooperation. So part of his structured schedule would be chill chair time and would be walking outside and and making noises or whatever you would want to call that. Um, I would actually have those on the schedule. I might even start the day with those. And as those happen, then connect whatever reinforcement system that you're putting in place for him to those activities and maybe have like it be three reinforce or three activities equals a reinforcement so that you have like chill chair, walk outside, and then something uber simple like I need you to take this piece of paper over to your cubby and put it in. Something super doable that's momentary, but it's not preferred. It's a task. Um, and then that's his third thing, and then he gets reinforced. The challenge is what's the reinforcement? Because it should be different than chill chair and walk and make noises.
Right. So first of all, I am doing I mean, I call it stimming, but the walking and making noises, I do that first thing in the morning with
Cool.
him. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, we also have started taking him. I finally got a sensory room up and going. So we've been taking him to the sensory room and he enjoys that. So it could just be the chill chair, the walking and the sensory room, or to begin with, but then adding in like one little thing like you're talking about. And then has been hard to find a reinforcer um, because because I really don't want to give candy. Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, so it is like we're trying to find and we're doing like reinforcement, like I forgot what to call it, but kind of like experiments where we'll have them, hey, want to, try this or let's do this and see if he likes it, and then we'll add that to
Right.
his reinforcers. And that's what I was
Or
thinking,
maybe,
like, oh, go ahead.
yeah, maybe you can just add simple demands for access then. So if you're starting with the walk, then even if it's hand over hand, take the icon, stick it here. That tells me you want to go on the walk and then walk. Even if you bring it out to him while he's on the walk and do it. And then
Mm-hmm.
same with chill chair, and then same with sensory room, and start to get the quote, the demand would be go to your schedule. Like this is down the road. Go to your schedule, grab the icon, put it in the I'm choosing this spot, and then go do the activity. When you're done, go back to your schedule, move that one off, and put your next one on that you want to do. So slowly teaching him to do that so that we're adding in functional communication to the quote opting out just adds a layer of demand and communication, and you can work around functional communication as a life skill and just keep that loop going while you're still seeking, reinforcement, um, like a reinforcement menu. But he doesn't sound like a kid that's going to be an easy reinforcement through, food or items or anything like that. It's gonna be functional. And then as you increase demands, you can increase those demands during the preferred activities. So you might increase, like you might do one sight word that you work on all day for a week. And as we're doing the walk, you can just pull out the sight word and be like, that's a stop sign. Say stop, stop. That's a stop sign. Say stop. So let's do it twice during the walk, then do it twice during the chill chair, then do it twice during the sensory room, and then start to remove the level of prompting and modeling and see if he can start reading it. And then you can start engaging with, um, you know, sight words that are life skill sight words and see if we can start moving in the direction where it's almost like Pavlov, where you start pairing um, demands with preferred activities.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's a little less traditional because the student's a little less traditional. So it's a little more of a creative exploration. It sounds like that's what you're already into is creative exploration. And this
Mhm.
is definitely like a creative exploration kid. So it's fun to talk about kids like this because they don't fit into the typical structure of like, okay, are they opting out? Okay, are they earning stickers? Like that kid's not even at the place where stickers mean anything. He's more like instant access to stay regulated. So my push for him would be how creative can I get inside those regulation zones of adding small demands like communication and small demands like, sight words are functional. functional life skill kind of stuff. It sounds like he's a functional life skills kid. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, he actually is a pretty good reader and can do some math. But I think that's just because he's, enjoyed that and figured out how to do that in his life, not necessarily from anybody, sitting in a reading group or being taught really. Or maybe possibly on like online programs or online, videos or whatever. Because that could be a reinforcer. Because of course I've talked to the parents about, what reinforces him at home. But at home, it's video games or being on the TV. And whenever he has had access to a Chromebook at school, which was one other questions I wanted to ask you, not specifically about the Chromebook, but about things that he enjoys doing, is that he doesn't stop doing them. I mean, obviously, why wouldn't you if you're enjoying
right,
yourself? So like if we use Chromebook as a reinforcer, then he'll smash the Chromebook or throw it at staff. Not at this school. This is at a different school. So I never even gave him a Chromebook because I don't want to go there. But when he has on one part of his schedule is a choice time where it's mostly just sensory things, like shaving cream, Play-Doh, kinetic sand, drawing. So once he starts those activities, then he doesn't want to stop. So moving
gotcha.
on or doing anything else is a no, thank you. This is what I'm doing for as long as I want to do it.
Yeah, so maybe those are the activities that are contingent upon accomplishing A, B, and C, right? And even if it's within the boundaries of chill chair, walking, and sensory room, you have to have it paired. So, did you communicate on your board? Did you do the activity? And did you do the one simple sight word demand, math demand, whatever demand that I put in place? If you do all three, boop, you get your little sticker thing. Three stickers equals access to this thing. And then you might realize like the only time we stop those things is when they bump up against a natural break that will help him transition. So now it's time to go outside for recess, time to eat lunch, time to go home. And I don't know if he's so hooked on those things that he can't even go to those transitions. But those tend to be easier transitions. And I wouldn't do Chromebook at all.
No.
I
Mm-mm.
just wouldn't do it
I,
right now.
yeah, I'm not going to.
Yeah, and at some point, if you can do something like Khan Academy or those kind of learning programs online to support the math or the reading or science or whatever it is, I would do a version where he's watching it on the TV that's up that he doesn't have any control over and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
right.
a learning thing, not like a free time thing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. That was a really good scenario because that was very non-traditional. Yeah. So function and behavior, if I think functionally for him, I would say in my own, this isn't official function. I would say in my brain, I'm doing it because I want to get what I want, right? That's the non-official version of access to items and activities. But if you staff wise and admin wise, if people just think um, my behavior escalates because I'm not getting what I want or in order to get what I want. Either way of putting that works. I wouldn't call it escape demands. I would definitely call it access to what I want. So that means this is tougher because if it's that way, then that means if he freaks out, you can't allow the access. What you can do is just pull away the two things that you can control, which is your relationship and the token economy, for the sake of safety. And it sounds like what you've already done is created a situation where you're getting through days without violence. So you've already created a baseline of safety. And that would have been the first step if you weren't already there. That's what I would have been working on you with is can we have days without violence? Yes or no? If we have yes, then we can start playing in this area right now where it's like, how do we introduce demands without seeing him come out of a regulation zone to the level where he is physically lashing out. So that's kind of your measure is how hard can I push without the physical acting out? He can be frustrated and scream and freak out or whatever, but he could always have access to, he won't get his token, but he could always just go to the chill chair or go outside and walk or go to the sensory room without asking. But if he goes through the routine, then he gets reinforced for it. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. And that's the only difference. So that's the area I would start with is reinforce when he uses his icon to communicate where he's going, when he follows through with being there and doing the thing that he chose, and when he also follows through with whatever one small demand you place on him in that space. And I wouldn't place it on him as he enters the space. I would let him get there and get going. And, you know, when he's engaging in that activity and he looks very regulated and very in the zone, then I would request a demand kind of in the middle of, let's say he was walking for 10 minutes. I'd wait 2 or 3 minutes before he settled in before I went, okay, and here's the one thing, you know, cool. Yeah, that was a good scenario. I like that one. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that brings up a good, like both of these scenarios bring up an important point, which is when kids are doing the things that are challenging for us, those are the things we should be paying attention to for clues. So one of the best ways that I find things out is I watch the quote misbehavior, the things that the teachers or the admin or the paras are like, why does he keep doing this or why does this keep happening? I'm very interested in exactly what that looks like and and how that student acts because they're giving me clues like do they need interaction or do they need to be left alone? Do they need movement or they need to be sitting still? Do they like stimulus around them or are they getting away from stimulus? Um, do they seem to be accessing the same like items and activities, or is it more environmental, or like those kind of things? So I'm always trying to see what the quote misbehavior has in common, so that I can add I will say it this way, so I can add a flavor of that into whatever demands I'm placing on them. So like I have a student in a whole different program that loves, well, what seems to be loves like oppositional interaction. Right? He loves to be oppositional and oppose and argue and seems to get into arguments with peers and adults. And so we are playfully exploring how to offer um, engagement around like debate and opinions and um, prove we're gonna like read a paragraph or watch a video or something. We're gonna prove them wrong, that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to engage that sense of opposition in a creative, generative manner rather than a way that is maladaptive. So that's the kind of thinking that I have is, I mean, heck, you guys, everyone on this call, you're all getting paid to be there every day anyway, you know? So take your time to explore. It's a science experiment. If you can look into their misbehavior and see what they're doing and see if you can include that in like are they always antagonizing peers? Well, then I would include some kind of peer interaction in the work. It wouldn't have to be antagonistic, but I would think like discussion, peer interaction, do they freak out every time writing happens? Cool. Then they're going to discuss things and they're going to maybe draw things or act things out or speech to text. If they can never sit still, then I'm going to have them handing things out, collecting things, adding movement into as many activities as I can. If they're always blurting out, can I put them in a kind of a, I wouldn't say a leadership role, but like a role where their job is to call on people and talk and, it's just a creativity thing where it's like you can how creative can we be in engaging kids um, in ways that are related to their misbehavior, but it is adaptive and helps them be successful rather than be maladaptive and kind of ruin the classroom environment. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to explore because it's pretty challenging to get there, but it's really fun to see how close to misbehavior I can create something that's not misbehavior. And then, of course, there's the idea of shaping where it's like, I don't need them, like with this kiddo that you're talking about, Karen. I don't need him to be at the end game where I'm placing a demand. He follows through on an entire demand before he gets reinforced for that demand. Um, I'm I'm looking at how how can I add just a little piece into it that makes it closer to what a demand might look like. And then when he nails that, then I'm going to add another piece and another piece, which is absolutely why I approached it the way I did. Because when I heard you talking about him and I heard you telling me what his tendencies were, and I heard you telling me where he is now, it tells me that he's already learned to communicate and say no, thank you. And when we give him the opportunity to opt out, he does it. So if that's already established, then that tells me that in the face of a demand, he says no, and what he gets is out of the demand. Now it's time to shape that behavior because now we've got that dialed. It's like 100% of the time he can do that. Awesome. That means it's time to move that behavior scenario. I can show you what it looks like. Hold on. That's funny that I'm like doing all this stuff with my hands and I could actually show you. So the antecedent is work or demand. The behavior is escalate, which is for him, it's like yell, hit, kick, whatever it looks like. And the consequence is get out of demand. So we can call it this instead of access. We can call it get out of demand. That's fine. We can try it that way first. That's actually, I think it's easier to deal with an escape function than it is to deal with an access function. So you might as well try it. And if you word it right, it works either way. So here's what's happening right now. Antecedent's there. I freak out and I get out of work. And what you've asked him to do is, or what someone asked him to do, oh my gosh, my pen's trying to quit on me, is go this way. Let's see if I have a pen in here. Of course it is. That's okay. I can make it work. So right now it looks like this. If there's a work demand and you freak out, you don't get out of that demand. I'm not letting you out of it. I'm actually going to be kind of annoying and be in your face, and I'm going to prompt this. I'm going to prompt say no thanks. And then you'll get out of a demand. So this is already happening. So now what's the next one? That's where we're at. That's where we are now. We're here. And this is shaping behavior. First it was freak out, then it was say no thanks, and now it is small demand during we can just call it no thanks, a no thanks activity. So instead of calling it a no thanks activity, I'm going to schedule my demands are going to look like these, and he can still get out of them if he doesn't do my small demand because we're already doing this no thanks activity. So I can just back off. And the way we're shaping this is through incentive rather than blocking function. But That's the basics of behavior shaping is you've got this antecedent behavior consequence. You want that behavior to look just a slight bit different, but not the end. And then when they nail that behavior, you want to add a little bit of a demand and a little bit of a demand. Each time they get really good at that. So like maybe for this guy, when he gets really good at, yep, he's communicating what he wants. Yep, he'll engage in one demand when he's doing the thing. And yes, he'll communicate, he'll go to the place and enter the activity, and he'll do the demand every time. Data shows because the sticker chart's showing us that it's just he's killing it. Once he's doing that, then I would add some version of a demand. So maybe I might structure it so that he can't pick which one he wants. Maybe it's first you walk, then you go to the sensory room, then you use the chair. It's my order, not your order. Or maybe it's you still get to pick what order it goes in, but I'm going to add two small demands instead of one demand. Or the demand is going to increase from I'm just going to pull out the sight word while we're walking, and I'm going to have like a stop on the walk where we're going to stop at a table and I'm going to open a folder and go, what's that sight word say? Awesome. Move it over and, some more demand, and then we'll keep walking. So that would be the next shaping, and I would just keep shaping it like that. Cool. I'm glad we got to say that for everybody's sake, because that's the behavior shaping stuff can seem more complex than it is. Anybody else want to talk about any other kind of scenarios or have any questions about? Basically, I'm kind of a broken record if you've gotten to know me. It's regulation, function of behavior, nurture heart approach, like for everybody. And as you can tell, when I was talking about Karen's scenario, I can lean into different areas more than others, but all of those pieces have to be in place in order to address behavior. So regulation is typically first for me, which is why um, where you are right now in with your scenario, Karen, he's showing regulation. If he wasn't, I'd be pushing all of my efforts into can we get a regulated kid at school, period, and just kill all the demands and make it as engaging and fun as possible. And then when I start adding in behavior expectations, that pulls in function of behavior, and immediately that demands um, nurtured heart approach. And even in the regulation stage, we've got to be careful and use nurture heart approach because we don't want, again, like I said in the beginning with the first scenario, we don't want to teach a kid that opting out only comes after escalation. Meaning, if I give a kid an opt out choice, they can be totally regulated and choose to do it whenever they want, do it for as long as they want, and come back whenever they're ready. It has to be, otherwise, not a regulation choice. You can make things that aren't regulation choices. You can have kids earn breaks and earn reinforcement activities, but just don't trick yourself into thinking that's a regulation activity. That's not regulation. That's earned rewards. And you've got to be careful about earned rewards. This is a training that's coming up pretty soon, I think, that I'm doing. But my rule of thumb is if a kid can access something through misbehavior, it has to be a free choice. Because if you make it a reward, then they're getting rewarded for negative behavior. And so if you're trying to say you can't, you know, if you do this, then you can go on the playground. Otherwise, you can't go on the playground. And they just run out of the room and they're on the playground. Now they got reinforced for negative behavior, or you get sucked into a power struggle trying to stop them. And now you're creating a function of behavior that didn't exist before. They're trying to escape and you're there saying no, 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 you can't escape, and you're ongoing trying to get them off, and more adults get involved and all this stuff happens, and suddenly running to the playground creates access to multiple adults, a whole bunch of relationship, all kinds of upside down stuff. So that's why the rule of thumb is if they can get it through negative behavior, make it a free choice. And if you don't want them to have it, then make it not accessible unless they have adult support. And it's a great checks and balances, I think. Because as a teacher, if kids are accessing, let's say I'm a teacher and they are running out of the room and accessing the playground all the time, I have to create more engaging things because I can't physically stop them from going to the playground. So now I have to work on my end to make academics more engaging. And this isn't like a win-lose situation. Again, I'm paid to be there every day. I'm going to relentlessly work at it, even if I never find the thing that keeps them off the playground. I have a bunch of trials, a bunch of data, and a bunch of information to pass on with that kid if they ever move or graduate out of my program so that the next people can keep working. Yeah, I've been in this long enough to know that I might not see the immediate change with kids, but I can lay groundwork and then a couple of years later find out, well, that kid's totally doing great. I didn't think I made a dent, but some of the stuff that I did may have laid the groundwork. We just don't want to make it worse. We don't want to end up creating situations where we're creating more bad habits that then other teachers have to address.
Yeah, I always remember your teachings of how we have to make things so engaging and so fun that they want to make the choice to be involved in what we're doing rather than anything else. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
that
made a
makes
big
the most yeah, it makes the most sense to me and why not? I mean, these kids are asked to come to school all day, every day for 6 hours of their lives. I
Mhm.
mean, it's
Exactly.
and yeah, we we should look to make it as engaging and fun and connecting and worthwhile as possible. That's why I'm such an advocate of building kids up, giving them evidence in their portfolio of beliefs about themselves so that at the very least they leave my classroom feeling like they have some skills around, I make good choices. I know how to do self-care. I'm a good communicator. Oh, the other thing, what did I write down for you, Karen? Oh, I would constantly talk about collaboration and cooperation with this kid. So every single time he engaged in any part of any expectation that you have for him, I would start blaming him for being cooperative and collaborative over and over and over. So like that's how I would leverage nurtured heart approach reflections to start giving him evidence that he actually does cooperate and he does collaborate. And so that's another kind of a cheat code I use is this kid likes to say no, 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 no. But I already know that this kid will go to the chair, go take a walk, and go to the sensory room. So if I then just hijack that and go, well, I'm going to schedule chair, walk, and sensory room. Because if I schedule it, then I can blame him for cooperating, right? So I'm automatically working on that one thing that sticks out as a problem. Oh, he's oppositional. He doesn't want to do anything I say. Cool. Then I'm just going to schedule what he's already doing and then call him cooperative until I prove that he's cooperative, right? So that's the other way, and that's the way I like to hijack kids in using nurture heart approach framework. And I think that's a really important aspect of kind of the stuff we talked about with that kiddo um, to include that. Yeah. I mean, kids will act out what they believe, who they believe they are. So one aspect of addressing behavior that I'm very interested in is working really hard on what the kids believe about themselves. That's as important as structuring reinforcement and consequences and clarity and all that other stuff. I'm glad that came up. I'm glad we got to say that out loud.
Yeah, that's amazing. I taught resourcer mild mod last year, and now those kids are in seventh grade. And so I know, their inner talk. And so now I have them come doing peer tutoring for my ESN class. And then I'm able to
Um,
do that. Yeah. Say like, like how great they are at math and how, what great teachers they are and how good, all the things, how smart they are and how they work so hard to overcome their issues with this subject or whatever. And look how it's paid off. And yeah, it totally builds them up from the inside.
That's awesome. Yeah. and how patient they are and how giving they are and generous and yeah,
Mhm.
thoughtful. And that's really cool.
Exactly.
Role models, all
Yeah, and
kinds of,
oh, exactly. Yeah, and I'm on a check and connect with one of the girls, and so I'm really using all of that with her because a lot of her problems is because she thinks that she's, this or that because she's in resource and special education and needs extra help. So I'm
yep.
really using a lot of nurtured heart to like help her see like all of her great qualities.
That's so awesome. I love that. I'm going to pop a nurtured heart thing in the chat real quick because I think this is another thing that's helpful for people if you don't have it. And if you do have it, that's fine. You can just have it again. Um, this is just a support. Like if you're looking for traits to build in students, this is, we call them emotionally nutritious words. So it helps me, like, if I look at these lists and think about my kids, like, oh, I gotta tell my kid about that aspect of who they are. I'm working on, altering beliefs. And so, you know, does this kid know they're creative? Does this kid know they're forgiving? Does this kid know they're polite? Have they ever been, accused of being joyful or kind? So that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. And I can, there's a couple of things I can do. Like I can pick a certain amount of words and just put them on the back of the classroom so that when I'm talking, I can look and I can see the words. I can also do reflections. A lot of the like the systems that I put in place, every natural transition, if we're going from recess back to class or math to English or any of that stuff, I'll stop and write down like evidence of here's what I saw you do. That's how I know you're a joyful kid. And I'll put it on paper and I'll send it home so it goes to their parents. And I don't know if they can read, but maybe their parents can read it to them, that kind of stuff. And when it's on the back of the class, then it reminds me of different things to say. And I'll also go home and and be like, man, that kid did this and that today. What cool things does that show me about them? And then I can write it up and send that as an email to parents. Can you read this to your kid? Can you tell them this is what I saw? Or I can just read it the next day. Here's the things I saw yesterday about you that I forgot to tell you. So those are a number of ways I use to, like, we call it building a portfolio. So if you've had nurture heart training, you know that term. If you haven't, that's like the portfolio of evidence that the kids have about themselves is what builds their belief. And so I'm not trying to erase what's already in their portfolio because that can't happen. What I'm trying to do is add a whole bunch of new evidence into their portfolio to help shift their beliefs so that if I can build enough evidence, it will be in competition with the old evidence that they have until they can make a choice of, I actually believe that I'm compassionate, patient, cooperative. And when they believe it, then we watch them shift. So I wanted you guys to have those words in case you lost track of them or you've never seen them before. It's a helpful tool. Okay, and we're at 5 minutes to the end, so I wanted to make sure that we were done nice and early. 5 minutes left, so um, if anyone has a last question or comment, go for it. Otherwise, we're good, and I appreciate everybody being here. Okay, I'll take that silence to mean we're done. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all of
Thank
you.
you, Josh.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye bye.